Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm trying something new. I thought I would start making videos about my art materials because I often get asked questions about what art materials I use in my watercolor painting practice, and my first video in this series is going to be about paint. I will tell you about my palettes, my favorite brands, my thoughts about having a limited palette versus having lots of different colors, how I choose my paints, and what I think is important when it comes to building your palette. So before I begin, I want to address the fact that my painting demonstration videos that you have seen on my channel do not have a voiceover, and I also often get asked why. There are many reasons why, but the main one, I simply do not have the time or the space to record the voiceovers. I find it very hard to paint and talk at the same time, because when I paint, I focus fully on what my watercolors are doing on paper in front of me. So my video is actually an accurate representation of my painting process. Now, of course, I can record voiceovers, but the thing is, after I finish the painting, but the thing is, I do not have the space to record the voiceovers without the background noise and distractions. So if not for the format that I currently present my videos in, which is the no voiceover, just the written notes, this channel wouldn't even exist. So my painting demonstrations will stay in that same format, but occasionally, when I have a chance, I will be making videos like this one. Whatever I mention here is something that works for me. For painting watercolor landscapes in a loose style that you can see on my channel, I do not have extensive knowledge about all the watercolor brands out there. I will simply tell you about what I have discovered in the last few years of painting in watercolor on a regular basis. So this is my personal opinion on materials. There are no rules, there are no shoulds when it comes to painting. As long as you're having fun with your watercolors and you are enjoying the process, that is all that matters. I think the only thing you need to follow is your curiosity. And remember that you are completely free to break all those so-called rules in order to learn about your own process and what excites you about watercolor. Do what works for you and follow your artistic intuition, and take all advice with a grain of salt. So when you start learning watercolor, you often hear that having 100% cotton, high quality paper is the most important thing, but to me it's actually good quality paint that is the most important. So the reason I personally choose artist grade paints is because they are more pigmented than student quality paints in my experience. They are less chalky because they have less fillers in them, and they have more pigment, and pigment is the actual color. So the more pigment there is in the tube, the juicier, stronger, and more saturated the washes will be. And I try to finish my paintings in as few washes as possible to preserve that luminous look that watercolors are famous for. So I always try to achieve a lot of tonal value contrast in my work, which is the contrast between the lights and the darks. And with lower quality paint, I would have to use more washes to build up the intensity of color and value, and that would lead to losing that luminosity. So I think it is important to invest in high quality paint. But if student quality paint is the only one you can afford, there is absolutely nothing wrong with using it, because it is better to use student quality paint and continue learning to paint than not painting at all. So the brands I stick with are Daniel Smith, because I know that they produce consistently good paint. Winsor & Newton, they are one of the oldest paint manufacturers in the world. Now, I love Schmincke, I love Holbein. I only have a few colors by them, but they are really, really good. And I have recently started using Michael Harding. I used to paint with Winsor & Newton Cotton paints, but as soon as I switched to their professional grade colors, I immediately saw how much more powerful the colors were, and it was actually easier to paint with them. So if you have really good quality paints but not the best quality paper, your painting experience using these paints will be better than if you had like really nice paper and just really chalky paints. So let's say I have this really cheap sketchbook. So this was literally $4. So and it is a watercolor sketchbook. This paper is obviously not the best quality, but I can still have so much fun with my high quality paints. And the washes are still luminous. I still enjoy the actual process of applying the paints to paper when I use these good quality paints. Now let me share with you how I organize and store my paints. So I buy paints in tubes, and then I use these well palettes, and then I squeeze the paints into the wells and I organize them by color. Now this well palette, it took me a while to find it, to find the one I was happy with. So I was really looking for a palette with larger wells, and I found this one on Amazon. I actually have quite a few of them. I'm really happy with this palette because the wells are actually quite large and they are slanted. So when I spray the paint with water before each painting session, the more diluted paint collects at the bottom of the well, and the paint at the top is very soft and juicy, and it is at full strength. So I have both diluted paint and stronger paint in the same well, and this lets me create a good range of values in my work. This is actually a 33 well palette, but then I bought a few of them and actually discovered by accident that these are removable. So each tray is removable. They come with a mixing tray and the well tray. So I just got rid of the mixing tray and in this one, and I used the well tray, and then I combined them into one large palette because I have quite a few colors, as you can see. So we have 66 wells on one. Now the thing is that you cannot actually close it completely, but it's not a problem because this is my studio palette, so I do not really take it anywhere. It lives on my desk. So as we can see with this 66 well palette, I do not really want to limit myself, but at the same time, I think it is very, very important to actually understand the basics of color theory and the way the limited palette actually works. You do not need extensive knowledge, you just need the fundamentals. And there is so much information available online. There are books that explain color theory. I can highly recommend this book by Hazel Sohn, Art of the Limited Palette. It is so well written. The information about color theory is explained in a very easy to understand way. And I thought that I was quite familiar with color theory and the way the limited palette works. But after reading this book, everything just made much more sense and became much more clear in my head. So once you learn how colors interact, creating harmonious paintings is easy, even if you use a ton of different colors in one painting, and if you have hundreds of different paints in your collection. I do not want to limit myself to 10 colors. I want to play with them all because this is where I get my inspiration. But understanding the way colors interact and understanding the reasoning behind the limited palette and why it is recommended to especially young artists is going to let you break all those rules. Just that knowledge of the limited palette and the color theory. So after I read that book and just read more on color theory, I actually reorganized my palette. So it used to look like this. There was literally no logic in how I arranged my paints, but after that I arranged them by color, and I made sure that I have both cool and warm variations of the same primaries. So I have cool yellows and I have warmer yellows, and I have warmer reds and I have cooler reds, and I have cooler and warmer blues and greens. The reason for this extensive palette is that I really enjoy playing with different characteristics of each paint. And when it comes to watercolor, we have transparency and opacity. We have granulation and non-granulation. We have staining and non-staining colors. And some colors are single pigment colors or multiple pigment colors, which means that some colors have only one pigment. If you look here, Green Gold by Michael Harding consists of just one single pigment, PY 129. And some colors like indigo, they consist of more than one pigment. So this one has actually 3, PBK6, PB15.3 and PB19. All these colors, they have something different and unique about them. And in my landscape work, I love creating lots of texture. So see how I have, for example, two warm browns that are really close to each other, burnt sienna and transparent red oxide. So they are both warm reddish browns. But the thing is that transparent red oxide is a granulating color which helps create texture, and burnt sienna is a non-granulating color which creates clean washes. Or if we look at yellows, I have cadmium yellow, which is a heavy and opaque color, and we have Indian yellow, which is still a warm yellow, but it is a very clear, very transparent color. So when you create your own palette, get to know your paints really well. Start with just a few tubes, but really learn the tricks that they can do for you. So for example, I have Pearland Green on my palette, and then it can create really interesting textures when you drop some water into it, when the wash is still slightly wet, and then it creates really interesting textures. And also when you choose different colors and you look at different artists using different colors, remember that whatever one manufacturer calls indigo can be very different to whatever another manufacturer calls indigo. Look at these two, for example. So this one is by Art Spectrum, which is an Australian brand, and this one is by Michael Harding. So this one is warmer, so it is still a dark desaturated blue. This one is a bit cooler. The differences are quite subtle, but there is still a difference. Or another example is Payne's Grey. There are so many different Payne's Greys out there. So again, if we compare Art Spectrum, Rockwell, and Winsor & Newton, you can see how different they are. So the Winsor & Newton one is actually really close to being blue, and then Art Spectrum is really close to being almost pure black. So it's like really gray. This one is more blue. So when you see an artist use a color and it looks slightly different to the one you have, it could be the reason that their brand of watercolor is different. Also, for example, with Payne's Gray, and I think also with Indigo, when I use the Art Spectrum Payne's Gray, it spreads on paper really fast. When I use Winsor & Newton, it actually stays put. Whatever colors you have, just get to know them very well and see what effects they can create, what interesting textures they can create for you. Another thing that is very important to me is how light fast the colors are. So some pigments are known for being fugitive, which means that they actually fade when they're exposed to light. And some colors are very light fast. For example, you painted a scene and you framed it and it is on the wall for years and years and years. The colors will stay the same as they were when you painted the scene. But some colors fade with time. So when I buy new colors, I always check the pigment on them. Then I do my research, because manufacturers normally mention that light fastness is good or excellent, but with the ones that I am suspicious about, I actually prefer to do my own tests, light fastness tests. So I paint color swatches, cut them in half, I stick it on my window, and another one is kept in the drawer in my office in the dark, and then normally it takes me around 6 months, and I try to do it during the summer months. So remember, I'm in the southern hemisphere, so I put the strips of color swatches onto my north facing window. This is where the sun is the strongest, and I normally do it from around October, November, when our sun is really picking up. I knew that Moonglow and Mayan Blue by Daniel Smith. So some people mentioned that they were not actually light fast. So I decided to do my own test. And as you can see, Moonglow did fade and Mayan Blue did fade as well. Information about pigments is freely available online. You can, when you choose paints, look up what pigments they consist of. For example, this one's made out of Phthalo Blue, PB15, and you can look up these pigments on a number of websites that provide extensive information about all the different colors and all the different pigments, sorry, and I will include these links in the description of the video, the ones that I use. So people often say that single pigment colors are superior. I actually do not really care, because I think it doesn't really matter. As long as you know what's inside, that's the main thing. And if you enjoy playing with that color, it doesn't matter if it's a single pigment or if there are multiple ones. Now, the reason for some people staying away from multiple pigment colors is that when they mix them with other colors, they can create really muddy washes, not very vibrant colors. But in my experience, as long as you understand the basics of color theory and you know what's inside your tube, I do not see it as a problem. They are sometimes called convenience mixes, the ones that have multiple pigments in one tube, but I do not have a problem with that at all, because yes, it is convenient to use these colors. And I have a good example of that. It's olive green. Olive green is made out of so many different pigments: PY97, PB29, and PBR7. So 3 different pigments. I can actually mix a very similar color, pretty much an identical color, out of the ones that I already have on my palette. But the thing with convenience mixes is that your color is very consistent. I just really want to have this color, but then I need to know the exact proportions of French ultramarine and Indian yellow to create a lot of olive green, for example, for a very lush green painting. And because I already have olive green, I don't have to worry about coming up with it color. So convenience mixes speed up my process, because I don't have to mix the colors. It is already sitting on my palette ready to use. Plus, it actually gets me inspired when I look at it, just to pick up my brushes and paint with this beautiful green. I know that single pigments are better for mixing clear, transparent, vibrant colors, but I have never been bothered by this, because I'm not afraid of actually mixing mud, because I really like earthy colors. I hope you find this video useful. I will probably talk about paper in the next video, and then I will talk about my brushes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Thank you for watching, and happy painting!